Admit it. The Strange Tale of Depsey the Rabbit. Chapter 18. The Blue Wall of Screens. The blue light pulsed ahead of them like a cosmic heartbeat, each throb sending ripples through the impossible physics of the rift. Depsey felt his cartoon legs carrying him forward, despite every instinct screaming at him to turn back. Behind him, Joko's nervous chatter had fallen silent, and even Dr. Moose's confident stride had become hesitant. "It's beautiful," Depsey whispered, though the word felt wrong in his mouth. The light wasn't beautiful, it was compelling, like staring into the sun despite knowing it would blind you. This has to be the way home. The landscape around them had begun to shift with each pulse of blue radiance. Debris that should have fallen upward now fell in directions that didn't exist. The green fog that perpetually shrouded the rift was being pushed back, revealing architecture that belonged to no cartoon world Depsey had ever seen. Crystalline structures grew from the ground like frozen screams, their surfaces reflecting the blue light in patterns that hurt to follow. Dr. Moose's scientific mind was clearly struggling with what he observed. His antlers twitched as both personalities attempted to process the impossible physics. The energy readings are unprecedented, both fascinating and absolutely terrifying. Joko had stopped walking entirely. His usual possessive confidence had crumbled into something approaching terror. "Depsey, I wanted to control this. I wanted to control you, but this..." He gestured helplessly at the pulsing light. "This isn't something you control, this is something that consumes." The blue light seemed to respond to Joko's fear, pulsing brighter, more insistent. Whispers that weren't quite sounds drifted from its source. Promises and threats woven together in harmonies that bypassed rational thought and went straight to the primitive brainstem. "I can't," Joko said, backing away. "I can't look at what we've been celebrating. Whatever's in that light, it's not cosmic justice. It's just hunger." Dr. Moose's tall form swayed as both of his personalities reached the same conclusion simultaneously. The scientific Dr. Moose spoke first. "The energy signature violates every principle of dimensional physics." Then the authoritarian Mayor Moose added, "and every moral principle I've ever enforced." For the first time since Depsey had known him, both personalities agreed completely. "We're leaving. Now." "Wait!" Depsey called after them, but his companions were already retreating, their forms becoming smaller against the alien landscape. "Don't leave me alone with this." But they were gone, and Depsey stood facing the blue light by himself. The compulsion to continue forward had only grown stronger. Whatever waited in that pulsing radiance held answers, or at least it held the way home. He forced his yellow shoes to take another step, then another. The light expanded around him like a living thing, and suddenly Depsey found himself standing in what felt like the interior of a cosmic movie theater. The blue radiance had formed walls, a ceiling, even rows of seats that stretched into impossible distances. But there was only one screen, and it dominated everything. A massive display that seemed to curve around the very fabric of reality itself. And then it began to show his life. The first image that materialized on the cosmic screen was painfully familiar. His yellow shoes making contact with Mr. Muffin's back 20 years ago. The perspective was perfect, as if the camera had been positioned precisely to capture the moment of betrayal. But this wasn't how Depsey remembered it. The blood money had always softened the memory, blurred the details, made it feel like something that had happened to someone else. This was different. This was truth without anesthesia. He could see Mr. Muffin's face as he fell, not just surprise, but a kind of heartbroken confusion. The Muffin had trusted him completely, had followed him to the cliff edge because Depsey was his friend. In the cosmic playback, Mr. Muffin's last expression wasn't anger or fear. It was disappointment. "Admit it!" The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, a cackling chorus that seemed to emerge from the screen itself. But it wasn't the playful childhood phrase from their innocent beach days. This was accusation made manifest, judgment wearing the mask of a game. The screen shifted to show the aftermath of Mr. Muffins's murder. The first letter arriving in Depsey's dressing room, the first vial of blood money ink, the first taste of protection from consequence. And then it showed what Mr. Muffins's elimination had enabled, how his death had created the first worshipful victim in the rift, how that worship had become theology, how that theology had justified everything that came after. "Admit it!" The second murder played out in excruciating detail. Dr. Moose, the same Dr. Moose who had just fled in terror, tumbling into the green void with his antlers twisted in confusion. And again the aftermath. How eliminating the rift's only scientist had removed the possibility of dimensional escape for everyone else. How Dr. Moose's death had forced the other victims to rely on worship instead of knowledge. Admit it. Murder after murder cascaded across the cosmic screen. Depsey watched himself become more efficient, more clinical, more comfortable with each elimination. He saw the exact moment when pushing friends into the void had stopped feeling like betrayal and started feeling like work. He watched the blood money change him, saw his cartoon features becoming more predatory, more artificial, more perfectly suited for deception. But worse than watching his own transformation was seeing the consequences. Each death had served the road job's grand design with mathematical precision. Every elimination had removed an obstacle, silenced a dissenter, or created a new foundation stone for the expanding system of corruption. His murders hadn't been random acts of survival. They had been surgical strikes against hope itself. The cosmic screen showed him broadcasting towers rising in the cartoon world, each one powered by the worship of those he'd thrown away. It showed Dr. Dinglegreen's enhancement procedures becoming more sophisticated as resistance was systematically eliminated. It showed Mr. Mystery's cosmic infrastructure spreading like infection, built on a foundation of 43 betrayals. Admit it! Admit it! Admit it! The voices multiplied with each revealed sin. Every victim joined the chorus, their voices overlapping in a symphony of accusation that made the very air vibrate with judgment. The screen began showing the ultimate consequence. Real souls in the real world, their innocent faces reflecting the blue light of broadcasting corruption, their young minds being systematically poisoned by entertainment built on Depsey's murders. Innocent faces, real flesh and blood. Not cartoon characters who could bounce back from anvils and exploding cigars, but actual living beings whose capacity for empathy was being carved away piece by a system that Depsey had enabled through 20 years of systematic murder. The weight of it crashed over him like a dimensional wave. Every rationalization he'd ever constructed crumbled under the simple, terrible truth. He had built this. Murder by murder, betrayal by betrayal. He had constructed a machine designed to corrupt innocence itself. The word came out as barely a whisper. I just want to go home. This isn't the way home. For the first time since the cosmic playback had begun, the screen went silent. The cackling voices paused. Even the blue light seemed to dim slightly, as if the entire cosmic system was holding its breath. Depsey felt something crack inside his chest, not his ribs. Cartoon characters didn't have ribs that could break. Something deeper. Something that had been protected by 20 years of blood money and was now exposed to the raw air of truth. His voice was smaller than it had been since he was a child throwing balls at beach picnics. I didn't want to admit it. The blue light pulsed once, gently, almost encouragingly. The screen remained dark, waiting. But then another voice spoke from somewhere deeper than conscience, older than guilt, more familiar than his own heartbeat. It was the voice that had whispered justifications for 2 decades, that had made survival seem more important than integrity, that had taught him that self-preservation was the highest moral law. "But this is just the rift," the voice said. "This is just cosmic horror trying to break you. If you can get back to the cartoon world, they won't know any of this. You can still escape consequences. You don't have to admit anything." Depsey straightened, feeling his cartoon spine reassemble itself into something approaching confidence. The moment of vulnerability passed like a brief shower, leaving barely a trace. "No," he said to the waiting screen. "This is just rift madness. This is just cosmic manipulation, trying to make me confess to things that aren't my fault. I was protecting myself. I was following orders. I didn't know what the system would become." The blue light pulsed brighter, and for a moment Depsey thought he'd made a mistake. But then the screen lit up again, not with accusations this time, but with something that looked almost like approval. "I refuse to admit anything," Depsey continued, his voice growing stronger. "I refuse to take responsibility for what others built on my actions. I'm not the villain here. I'm just someone who survived." The cosmic screen shifted, and suddenly it was showing something different. Not his murders, not the consequences, but a workshop deep in the heart of Tumbledown Town. The image was crystal clear. Mr. Muffins, older and more worship-worn than when Depsey had pushed him, hunched over an array of dimensional equipment that hummed with the same blue energy that surrounded them now. Portal technology. A way home. The screen zoomed in to show the technical details with perfect clarity. Dimensional resonance frequencies, portal stabilization matrices, the exact sequence of operations needed to punch a hole between the rift and the cartoon world. Mr. Muffins had built it all, maintained it all, powered it with his own worship-driven devotion to the cosmic system. "Excellent," came a voice from the blue light, not cackling now, but deeply satisfied. "You understand perfectly. You refuse to be broken by guilt. You prioritize survival over sentiment. You recognize that strength comes from defying cosmic judgment rather than submitting to it." The image on the screen pulled back to show the workshop's location relative to Tumbledown Town, the safest approach routes, even the times when Mr. Muffins was most likely to be distracted by his worship rituals. "Here's your path home," the voice continued. "Your first victim has become your salvation. Poetic justice, in its way." Depsey stared at the screen, understanding flooding through him like ice water. The cosmic system hadn't been trying to break him with guilt. It had been testing him, testing whether he would maintain his useful moral corruption in the face of ultimate truth. And he had passed. His refusal to admit his sins hadn't made him an enemy of the cosmic order. It had made him a perfect agent. "Thank you," he whispered to the blue light, and meant it. The screen went dark. The cosmic theater began to fade around him. But the knowledge remained, etched into his memory with perfect clarity. Exactly how to find Mr. Muffins, exactly how to access the portal technology, exactly how to get home. All he had to do was betray the 2 beings in the rift who trusted him most. Depsey walked away from the blue light with steady steps. Behind him the cosmic radiance continued to pulse, but it no longer called to him. He had received what he came for. Not salvation, but opportunity. Not redemption, but a mission. Joko and Dr. Moose were waiting for him at a safe distance, their forms small and nervous against the alien landscape. They looked up as he approached, clearly expecting him to be shaken, traumatized, changed by whatever revelation the blue light had shown him. "Are you all right?" Dr. Moose asked, both personalities speaking in unison for once. Depsey managed what he hoped looked like a shaken smile. It was horrible. Just cosmic madness trying to break us down. I'm glad you both had the sense to stay away. Joko moved closer, his possessive instincts reasserting themselves now that the immediate threat had passed. What did you see? Lies, Depsey said simply. Cosmic lies designed to make us hate ourselves, to make us admit to things that weren't our fault. I'm not falling for it. He looked at his companions. These two victims who had survived decades in the rift, who had found ways to build community and maintain hope in the face of cosmic horror, who trusted him because they believed they shared the same fate. We need to get home, he told them, all of us. And I think I know how. The blue light pulsed behind them one final time, almost like a wink. Depsey smiled back.